Hi everyone, this is Priya Vashne and I welcome you all to the new session. In this video, we are going to understand why Machiavelli is known as the child of Renaissance, and we will also understand that what was the purpose of Machiavelli. All these things will help us to understand the thoughts of Machiavelli. Okay, so let us start. So, every thinker is the child of his times. We have discussed this statement many times in our previous videos, but why I have created a complete slide for this statement is because as per many scholars, this statement, that is every thinker is a child of his times, suits Machiavelli the most. Now you will ask me, why is it so, and what was the time when Machiavelli belonged to, right? So that time was the age of Renaissance. We had also discussed in our previous video that Machiavelli belonged to the age of Renaissance. That's why he is also known as the child of Renaissance, right? But is it sufficient to for us to know? No. It is very important for us to know that what was actually happening at that time, because see, whenever, what exactly this description means, it implies that whatever was happening at that time at which Machiavelli belonged to had a lot influence on his thoughts. Or you can say that whatever instructions Machiavelli has given in his great work The Prince, all those instructions are or have dominant influence of whatever was happening at the time at which Machiavelli belonged to. Is it clear? So when I say that Machiavelli belongs to age of Renaissance, and we also have this statement, then it will be very normal to say or call Machiavelli as the child of Renaissance. So now let us try to understand that what exactly was happening at that time which has molded the thoughts of Machiavelli, or which had actually pushed Machiavelli to give the instructions which he has given in his famous work The Prince. Okay? Okay. But before that, let us just first try to understand this word Renaissance. The Renaissance is basically, it actually refers to a period in European history which marks the transition from the Middle Ages to the modernity. In the previous video as well, I have explained to you that there was a medieval age, right? And then there is the modern age. Now, what happens is medieval age was not directly we have not actually, people have not actually transferred from medieval age directly to the modern age, right? There was a transition period because many changes happened, right? Whenever, obviously, when we actually say that this was an age and this was another age, then obviously baat hai ki many changes happened which actually created this transformation, right? So basically this transformation as well has a transition period between it, and this transition period is basically the period in the European history which we usually call as the period of Renaissance or the age of Renaissance. I hope now the definition of Renaissance is clear to you, right? Okay, okay. Now let us understand that what was actually happening in the age of Renaissance, or what was actually happening at the time of Machiavelli, right? Now, it is very clear to you that it was the age of Renaissance when Machiavelli belonged to. Is it clear? Now, what happened is, because of it, as I have told you in the previous slide as well, that Renaissance was actually the transition period between the medieval age and the modern age. Means it was the period when medieval age was coming to an end and modern age was about to start, right? Now, obviously, there would be something, some changes which would be happening, which had actually marked the starting of the modern age and the end of the medieval age, right? Okay, so what were those changes? See, Renaissance has actually led to lot of changes in almost all the aspects of the life. But for us, for as a student of political science, for us it is very important to understand that what were the political changes which were happening at that time, right? Which what were the political changes which were happening at the age of Renaissance, right? So it has actually led uh, along with so many changes. Some changes were very major, right? So we can say that some of the byproduct of Renaissance was the growth of reasons and the growth of science. That's why only we actually call modern age as what? Modern age. When we say modern age, we actually say that it is the age of science, right? It is the age of science. Similarly, okay, when we say medieval age, then along with so many aspects, one of the aspect which actually reflects that this is the medieval age was the dominance of religion, right? Dominance of religion. Now remember, we are talking about the European history because Machiavelli belonged to Europe. Okay, so what happened was, since in the medieval age there was the dominance of religion, and in European history when we are saying that it was the dominance of religion, we can say that the church has the dominance. Now since I said that we are only concerned with the changes which were happening in the political aspect, then when I'm saying that there was the dominance of religion, then it actually means that there was a dominance of religion or church on the political system as well, right? On the political system as well. What does this mean is that whoever was the king, right? That whoever was the king or the prince had to follow, the, or you can say that he or she was not independent, right? They were not independent, which means that there was the influence of church over the decisions of the king or the prince. Is it clear to you? Now, what was the change which happened when we were transitioning from the medieval age to the modern age? What happened is, this transition, what was seen is that the influence of this church, or you can say the influence of the religion, started to diminish, right? So what was seen was the rolling back of religion from the political sphere, from the political sphere. Now when you all must have heard this word secularism, right? So in India, we have a different concept of secularism. But when we talk about European concept of secularism, then it actually marks the complete separation between politics and the religion, right? So what happened was, when we were transitioning from medieval age to the modern age, what was seen is the rolling back of the religion from the political sphere, right? Means what was the result of this transition was the secularization of the society. Means God started to get confined within the personal sphere. It the influence or the dominance of the religion started to diminish in the political sphere. Is it clear to you? I hope I am able to explain this, right? Okay. So when we will study the thoughts of the Machiavelli, then the one thing which you will notice is the separation of church and the state, right? So you can say that, or you can say Machiavelli is also seen as the originator of the concept of European model of secularism, because it was seen for the first time in the works of Machiavelli, the separation between the state and the church. Why I am calling church? Because at that time there was the influence of church, and since we are learning about the European history, so there the dominant religion was the Christianity. Okay, okay. Now, now one more thing which you should know is that what all so one thing you have seen, that what was happening, that there was the rolling back of religion which was happening at the time of Machiavelli. One more thing was happening at that time. What? See, when I say that we are transitioning from the medieval age to the modern age, and as I said that modern age was what? Modern age can be referred to the age of science, right? Or scientific age. We can also call it a scientific age. Now, what was that thing because of which we are calling it as scientific work? Because there was the you can say growth of reasons, right? Because science is based upon reasons, right? It is based upon facts. It is based upon reasons. So, what happened is when there was the growth of reasons, it led to it led to, sorry, scientific revolution, right? It led to scientific revolution. Now, what happened because of this scientific revolution was the growth of industrial revolution, because industrial revolution was composed of the use of machines, of setting up of industries, and industries ultimately composed of the machines, right? And people were trained to use that machines, and using those machines some products were created which were actually sold in the market, etc. Now, so this industrial revolution was actually the byproduct of the scientific revolution only. Now the byproduct of this industrial revolution was the capitalism, was the growth of the capitalism. Are you able to connect the dots, right? So when we say that there was the growth of capitalism, it actually led to materialism. It actually led to the growth of materialism, right? Okay. It also led to the growth of individualism, means individual is prior to the whole, right? And it also led to the growth of utilitarianism, right? And ultimately it led to the growth of, or you can say emergence of, the concept of emergence of nationalism, right? Because ultimately there was the need the need for boundaries was felt, because the trade had to happen, right? So the concept of nationalism also emerged. Now, why I am telling you all this? See, what happens is every thinker which you will study actually represents the interest of a particular class, or you can say particular section of the society. Not class is not the correct word. The correct word is the section. So every thinker represent the interest of a particular section. Now you can see that what was actually happening at the time of Machiavelli was capitalism was emerging, right? This was the ultimate byproduct of the growth of reasons, you can say, at that time. So, since capitalism was at its, you can say, at its peak of growth, so basically whatever we will study in Machiavelli, whatever thoughts we will study of Machiavelli, we will see the influence of these things on his thoughts. You will be able to categorize it. You will be able to see, oh yeah, this thought actually represent materialistic influence on the Machiavelli. This thought of his represents the utilitarian nature of the influence of utilitarianism on Machiavelli, etc. Right? So one thing which you should note here is that Machiavelli represents the interest of bourgeois class, right? Because this was the emerging class at that time, right? So he actually represents the interest of the bourgeois class. But that was not the purpose of Machiavelli at all. The purpose of Machiavelli was not to represent the interest, or you can say the interest of the emerging bourgeois class. Then what was the Machiavelli's purpose? This is what all was happening at his time, and all these things had influence of over the thoughts which Machiavelli, or instructions which Machiavelli has given in his book The Prince. But what was the actual purpose of Machiavelli? To understand that, you need to understand that from where did Machiavelli belong to. So basically Machiavelli belonged to what we at the present time is known as Italy. Okay. So, Machiavelli actually belonged to the time when nation states started to have started emerging in Europe, right? The concept of nation states, the concept of nation states had started to emerge in Europe, right? Now, since we have seen in Plato as well that every thinker, we have seen that Plato was had a great love for his motherland. Similarly, Machiavelli also had great love for his motherland. Both of them, what is common between Machiavelli and Plato, we can say is that both of them actually wants their motherland to prosper, their motherland to grow, to actually attain every glory, right? So as I said that Machiavelli belonged to Italy, right? Which is the Italy in present time. But what happened at that time was that Italy was actually divided into some principalities, or you can say among some feudal states. Exact number I don't remember, but it is I think around five, right? It was actually divided into some five or six feudal states, right? So what was actually happening was at one point of time Italy was you can say Italy was one of the most advanced region. But during the time of Machiavelli, Italy has become the most corrupt society, right? Italy, the condition of Italy was very very poor. Again, the reason was the corruption, which was also in the case of Athens, right? But one thing what you should know is that what I was trying to say when I said that it was divided into some principalities is because these principalities were actually fighting among each other. These principalities were fighting among each other, among themselves. Now what happened was this actually made Italy vulnerable to the external threats. So what Machiavelli wanted this splitted Italy to consolidate and to convert it into the nation state. Because as I said that at that time the concept of nation state was emerging, right? So Machiavelli found this concept very interesting, and he actually thought that if his motherland or Italy, the if it gets consolidated into a nation state, then the condition or situation of Italy can be improved. Is it clear to you? Okay. Okay. So, as you can see here as well, that Italy was actually divided into some principalities, right? Okay, so one thing you should also know is that what happens once with Machiavelli is he was actually see, actually Machiavelli belonged to Florence. You can see in this map as well. Uh, he actually belonged to Florence, right? Florence part, because as I said that it was divided, Italy was divided into few principalities. He belonged to Florence. So, but Machiavelli was, you can say, he has served in many political offices, right? He has served different political offices. He even had served as a diplomat, right? But what happened with him once is when he was in the once upon a time he was in the court of the king of France, right? And at that time, once he was actually addressed as Mr. Nihilio. Now, what does this mean? See, basically, Mr. Nihilio means Mr. Zero. Now, why he was called as Mr. Zero? It was because it was believed that he comes from a place which had no respect among the states in Europe. He belonged to Italy. So, what it represented is that Italy has no respect uh, among the states in Europe, right? So this Mr. Nihilio represented that. So this was actually something which जिसने मैकियावेली को बहुत परेशान कर दिया था, right? Because it was you can say अब तो मतलब अपने देश की आन बान शान की बात है, right? So Machiavelli was so much desperate to find a solution for this problem. He wanted Italy to gain its lost glory, right? So he was a great patriot. Right, so he just wanted to his motherland to regain its glory. Is it clear? So I hope you are able to understand that what were the conditions which Machiavelli had belonged to, and what was the purpose of Machiavelli. So purpose of Machiavelli was the uh, that he wanted his motherland to regain its glory, right? So Machiavelli was basically against two sections: feudal lords and or aristocracy and the church. So it's not that he was against the religion. And when I'm saying that he was against the church, it's not that he did not believe in it. What happened was at the time of Machiavelli, what was seen was that there was a lot of corruption that was happening there. So Machiavelli was basically against this corruption, right? Similarly, he also believed that this is one of the major factor behind the lack of unification of Italy, right? And feudal lords or aristocracy, he did so Machiavelli did not believe in the rights which should be given to a person only because of his birth at a certain place or at a certain in a certain family, right? Okay. So Machiavelli actually represented the interest of the bourgeois class. That's why we had also studied in our previous video that Machiavelli was against feudalism. Why? Because feudalism is a system of which is based on birth, and Machiavelli represents the psychology of the emerging capitalist class. And emerging capitalist, what was the psychology? That anyone can become rich. You just have to have some, you can say, you just need to know some rules, right, to become a capitalist, right? So this is all in the Machiavelli. So in the next video, what we will understand is, from the next video we will understand the various instructions which were given by Machiavelli in his book The Prince. Those instructions actually represent his love for his motherland. Why? Because he thought that if the prince or king will follow those instructions, he will be able to unify the Italy, right? Because what was the actual purpose of Machiavelli was the consolidation of Italy. So whatever instructions he has given has been given by keeping this thought in his mind, right? Because he wanted Italy to regain its glory. And one of the way through which Machiavelli believes Italy can regain its glory is by becoming a nation state. Is it clear to you? Okay. So that's all in this video. If you do not understand the concept of nation state, you can comment in the comment section. Then I'll try to make a video on that as well, so that you will get the whole clarity. Okay, that's all in this video. Thanks a lot for your time. uh, if you have liked this video, then please don't forget to share and subscribe. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.